The Stargate's event horizon exploded outward with its characteristic burst of energy, the chevrons disengaging as the wormhole stabilized. In the gate room of Stargate Command, 28 levels beneath Cheyenne Mountain, armed SF personnel maintained their defensive positions, weapons trained on the shimmering pool of liquid light. This was standard protocol. Every incoming wormhole was treated as a potential threat until proven otherwise. What emerged was anything but standard. 6 figures tumbled through the gate in a cascade of colored light: red, black, blue, yellow, pink, and white, their armored forms hitting the metal ramp with heavy impacts that echoed through the concrete chamber. The wormhole collapsed behind them with its usual explosive kawoosh, severing whatever connection had brought them here. Klaxons continued to wail as the newcomers struggled to their feet, disoriented and clearly defensive. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" Major Davis shouted, but the command seemed almost absurd given what he was looking at. The 6 figures wore form-fitting suits of armor unlike anything in SGC's database, sleek, color-coded, with distinctive helmets featuring dark visors and stylized designs. The one in red stood at the center, body language screaming leadership even in confusion. To his right, a figure in black moved with martial arts precision. The blue-armored one immediately began scanning the room with a device pulled from his belt. Yellow and pink flanked the left side, adopting defensive stances. The white-armored figure at the rear radiated controlled power, hands raised but ready. "Where are we?" The red figure's voice came through his helmet, young and distinctly Californian. "This isn't Rita's palace." In the control room above, General George Hammond stood beside the observation window, his weathered face impassive as he processed the situation. Beside him, Colonel Jack O'Neill lowered his binoculars with a trademark smirk. "Well, that's new. Are we under attack by a kids' TV show?" "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from all 6 individuals," Captain Samantha Carter reported, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "The power output is off the charts, nothing like Goa'uld technology, Tok'ra, or even ancient. This is something entirely different." "Indeed," Teal'c added from his position, his Jaffa warrior instincts clearly on alert. Their arrival was not through standard gate travel. The energy pattern was corrupted, as though something intercepted the wormhole itself. Daniel Jackson adjusted his glasses, leaning closer to the window. "Those designs on their helmets, they're reminiscent of prehistoric creatures, dinosaurs maybe. The symbolism could indicate—" "Dr. Jackson, fascinating anthropology later. Right now, we have 6 unknowns in my gate room, and I need to know if they're a threat." He pressed the intercom. "This is General Hammond, commander of this facility. You've come through the Stargate into a secure United States military installation. Identify yourselves immediately." The red figure stepped forward, hands still raised in a non-threatening gesture. "General, my name is Jason Lee Scott. We're the Power Rangers from Angel Grove, California, Earth. We were fighting Rita Repulsa when something went wrong with the dimensional barriers. We didn't mean to intrude, but we need to find a way back home. Our world needs us." O'Neill's eyebrow climbed higher. "Power Rangers? As in, it's Morphin Time Power Rangers? Carter, please tell me this is some kind of elaborate Halloween prank." "The energy readings are real, sir," Carter confirmed, her scientific curiosity clearly overriding her skepticism. "And if they're telling the truth about dimensional barriers, that could explain the anomalous wormhole behavior. We've theorized about parallel dimensions, but we've never seen actual proof." In the gate room, the Blue Ranger, Billy, based on the SGC's rapidly recording audio, had finished his scan and was now staring at the Stargate itself with obvious fascination. "Remarkable! This is a stable wormhole generator using a ring configuration and what appears to be crystalline technology. The energy requirements alone must be astronomical, yet the system maintains coherence across interstellar distances. How do you address specific coordinates?" Carter's eyes widened. Does he understand the gate mechanics from a 30-second scan? The White Ranger moved to stand beside Jason, his posture protective. "We're not your enemies, General, but if this is Earth, then we're on the same side. We defend our planet from extraterrestrial threats. Looks like you do the same thing, just with less color coordination." "Stand down, Rangers," Jason said quietly, and as one, the 6 figures relaxed their stances, professional, coordinated, clearly a team that had fought together extensively. "General Hammond, we're at your mercy. We don't know how we got here, but we need your help to get back home. Rita won't waste this opportunity to attack Angel Grove while we're gone." Hammond studied them for a long moment, weighing options and protocols. 6 individuals with unknown capabilities and unknown origins, claiming to be from another dimension of Earth. Under normal circumstances, he'd have them detained immediately, but these weren't normal circumstances. The energy readings Carter was reporting, the genuine confusion in their voices, the way they'd immediately identified themselves and asked for help rather than attacking, it all suggested something unprecedented. "Lower your weapons," Hammond ordered the SF teams, though he noted they kept them ready. "Remove your helmets slowly." The Rangers exchanged glances, and Jason nodded. As one, they reached up and light shimmered across their helmets as they demorphed. The armor dissolved in cascades of colored energy, revealing 6 teenagers in casual clothing, jeans, t-shirts, completely ordinary, except for the belt devices at their waists and the look of warriors in their eyes. "Holy Hannah," Carter breathed. They were kids, late teens at most, but probably younger. Jason had the build and confidence of a natural athlete. The Black Ranger, Zach, had the fluid grace of a dancer and martial artist. The blue-armored one immediately began scanning the room with a device pulled from his belt. Yellow and pink flanked the left side, adopting defensive stances. The white-armored figure at the rear radiated controlled power, hands raised but ready. "Sir, permission to escort our guests to the briefing room?" O'Neill requested, his usual sarcasm tempered by something that might have been respect. "Granted," Hammond nodded slowly. "SG-1, you're on point. Rangers, you'll come with us peacefully, answer our questions truthfully, and we'll do everything we can to help you get home. But understand, this facility contains classified technology vital to Earth's defense. You've stumbled into something much bigger than you realize." "With respect, General," Jason replied, meeting Hammond's gaze steadily. "We fought aliens, monsters, and interdimensional witches for a year. We've saved our world more times than we can count. I think we can handle bigger." O'Neill grinned despite himself. "Ooh, I like these kids already. Carter, break out the good coffee. This is going to be one hell of a debriefing." As the SF teams formed an escort and the blast doors opened, the power-morphing Rangers took their first steps deeper into Stargate Command. Behind them, the Stargate stood silent, its inner ring still and dormant. But in the control room, warning lights began to flash across Carter's console. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations in the gate's naquadah capacitors," she reported with growing concern. "Whatever brought them through left a signature in the system. If I'm reading this correctly, the wormhole didn't just connect 2 points in space, it briefly connected 2 entirely different realities." "Can we replicate it? Send them back?" Daniel asked. Carter's fingers flew across her keyboard, running calculations. "I don't know. The energy pattern was chaotic, unstable. Trying to force a dimensional bridge without understanding the mechanics could tear the gate apart, or worse, we could open a doorway to something we can't close." In the depths beneath Cheyenne Mountain, 6 teenagers from another Earth had arrived in a universe at war. They didn't know that their presence had sent ripples across the galaxy, that sensors on Goa'uld motherships had detected the dimensional breach, that system lords were even now demanding explanations for the impossible energy signatures. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers had come through the Stargate, and the universe would never be quite the same. The briefing room felt smaller, with 12 people crammed around the conference table. General Hammond sat at the head, his hands folded as he studied the 6 teenagers who had quite literally dropped into his facility. SG-1 occupied the sides, O'Neill leaning back with deceptive casualness, Carter with a laptop open and running continuous scans. Daniel with a notepad already half filled with observations, and Teok standing at parade rest near the door. The Power Rangers sat together on the opposite side, their unity obvious in how they unconsciously maintained formation, even while seated. Jason spoke for the group, but Hammond noticed how each ranger contributed when their expertise was relevant. Billy for technical matters, Tommy for tactical considerations, the others adding details that painted a comprehensive picture. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," Hammond said after 20 minutes of initial debriefing. "You're teenagers from Angel Grove, California, chosen by an interdimensional being named Zordon to defend Earth from an alien sorceress named Rita Repulsa, who was imprisoned on the moon 10,000 years ago." "I know how it sounds, sir," Jason acknowledged, "but it's the truth. Zordon gave us the power coins," he gestured to the device at his belt, "which connect us to the Morphin Grid, an energy field that exists across all dimensions. When we morph, we gain enhanced strength, speed, durability, and access to our weapons and Zords." "Zords?" O'Neill interjected. "Please tell me those aren't what I think they are." Kimberly smiled slightly. "Giant robotic dinosaurs that combine into a Megazord. They're our answer to Rita's monsters, which tend to grow about 100 feet tall." O'Neill looked at Hammond. "Sir, I'd like to formally request that we recruit these kids immediately. We could use giant robots." "Zach has the Mastodon," Billy continued, ignoring the byplay with scientific focus. "Trini commands the saber-toothed tiger. Kimberly pilots the pterodactyl. My Zord is the Triceratops. Jason leads with the Tyrannosaurus. And Tommy," he glanced at the White Ranger, "commands the White Tiger Zord and Falcon Zord independently." Carter's fingers had stopped typing. "You're describing technology that would require power generation beyond anything we currently possess. The energy requirements to move something that massive, maintain structural integrity, and coordinate 6 separate systems into a single combined form." "The Morphin Grid provides the power," Billy explained, clearly delighted to find someone who understood the technical challenges. "It's not electricity or nuclear fusion, it's morphological energy, the fundamental force that allows matter to take different forms. Zordon taught us to channel it through the power coins. The Zords are physical constructs, but they're animated and powered by grid energy." "Morphological energy," Carter repeated, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. "That's theoretically possible if you're manipulating reality at a quantum level, but the computational power required to maintain coherence." "Captain, fascinating as this is, we need to address the immediate situation." Hammond turned back to Jason. "You said you were fighting Rita Repulsa when this happened. What exactly occurred?" Tommy leaned forward, his expression troubled. "Rita had stolen an artifact from Zordon's archives, something called the Dimensional Gateway Crystal. She was trying to use it to summon reinforcements from other dimensions. We engaged her forces to stop the ritual. I was attempting to disrupt the harmonic frequency with my blade blaster when it overloaded. There was a massive energy discharge, and the next thing we knew, we were tumbling through what you call the Stargate." Daniel perked up. "The Stargate's wormhole creates a stable point-to-point connection through subspace. If your crystal was already tearing dimensional barriers and the gate activated at the exact same moment, the wormhole could have acted as a dimensional anchor," Carter finished, her mind clearly racing. "That means our gate address was somehow visible across dimensional boundaries. Whatever this Morphin Grid is, it's powerful enough to bleed through into parallel realities." Teok spoke for the first time since they'd entered the briefing room. "If this is true, then the Goa'uld have detected the dimensional breach. Their sensors monitor all Stargate activity. They will be most interested in any new power source, particularly one that can traverse dimensions." "The what they are?" Zach asked, pronouncing the word carefully. Hammond's expression grew grimmer. The Goa'uld are parasitic aliens who have enslaved much of this galaxy. They're the primary threat we face through the Stargate program. They pose as gods, use advanced technology to maintain their rule, and they're always searching for new weapons and power sources to use against their rivals and enemies. They sound like Rita, Trini observed quietly. Oh, they're successful, O'Neill said darkly. They've got pyramid ships, staff weapons, shield technology, and armies of Jaffa warriors, human soldiers who tarry infant Goa'uld and serve the system lords without question. Not all Jaffa are enslaved, Teok corrected, a hint of pride in his voice. Some of us have learned the truth and now stand for freedom. The Rangers exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Tommy nodded slightly, and Jason turned back to Hammond. General, we understand this isn't our world, and we have no authority here. But if these Goa'uld are a threat to Earth, any Earth, then we want to help. That's what we do. You're 17 years old, Hammond said, not unkindly. 18, sir, Jason corrected, and we've been fighting for our world since we were 16. We've faced armies of putties, monsters that can level city blocks, and Rita's magic. We've died and been brought back. We've had our powers stolen and fought to reclaim them. We've saved Angel Grove and the world more times than anyone knows, because that's what Zordon chose us to do. His voice was steady, mature beyond his years. We don't ask for permission to defend people, we just do it. Hammond saw O'Neill nod slightly in his peripheral vision. The colonel recognized warriors when he saw them, regardless of age. I appreciate the offer, Hammond said carefully, but this isn't a decision I can make unilaterally. 6 individuals with unknown capabilities and unknown technology, no offense intended, represent a security risk I have to take seriously. You'll remain as guests in this facility while we work on getting you home. You'll be given quarters, access to certain areas, and we'll arrange for you to speak with Zordon if that's possible. It's not, Billy said regretfully. Zordon exists in a time warp. He's trapped between dimensions. Without the command center's communications array, we can't reach him. And even if we could, we're not in our dimension anymore. The connection wouldn't bridge this gap. Then we work the problem, Carter said with determination. I'll analyze the energy signature you left in the gate, run models on dimensional bridge theory, and see if we can recreate the conditions that brought you here. If we can understand the mechanics, we might be able to send you home. In the meantime, Hammond continued, you'll be confined to level 19 and accompanied by SF personnel at all times. I'm sorry, but that's non-negotiable. We understand, sir, Jason said, though his frustration was obvious. But if something comes through that gate, if you need help, we'll manage, O'Neill assured him, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely opposed to having backup Rangers if things went sideways. As the briefing concluded and SF teams arrived to escort the Rangers to their temporary quarters, Carter pulled Daniel aside. This is incredible, she whispered. 6 teenagers with access to technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. If we could study the Morphin grid? If we could study it, Daniel interrupted quietly, so could the Goa'uld. And something tells me Rita Repulsa with a Goa'uld army backing her would be a nightmare. In orbit around a distant planet, aboard the mothership of System Lord Apophis, sensors had indeed detected the dimensional breach. The ship's first prime stood before his god, reporting the impossible energy readings from Earth. Apophis's eyes glowed with parasitic light as he smiled. New weapons had just announced themselves. The holding lasted exactly 18 hours before everything changed. Billy had spent most of that time in deep discussion with Captain Carter, their conversation ranging from quantum mechanics to crystalline energy matrices. The SGC's chief scientist had initially been skeptical, but Billy's understanding of advanced physics, taught by an interdimensional being with 10,000 years of knowledge, quickly earned her respect. They'd been mapping the energy signature the Rangers left in the Stargate when the alarms started blaring. Unauthorized off-world activation, the intercom announced throughout the facility. The Rangers were on their feet instantly, muscle memory overriding their status as guests. Their SF escort looked torn between keeping them contained and responding to the emergency. Jason made the decision for them. "We're coming with you," he stated, not asked, already moving toward the door. "If this is an attack, you need every defender you can get." The SF team leader, Sergeant Simmons, hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Stay behind us and follow orders." They reached the control room to find controlled chaos. General Hammond stood at the window overlooking the gate room, watching the Stargate's chevrons lock in sequence. SG-1 was already geared up, P-90s ready. "Identity codes, Walter," Hammond demanded. "None, sir," the technician replied tensely. "This is an incoming wormhole without authorization. Could be any of the system lords." "Close the iris," Hammond ordered. A massive titanium barrier slid across the Stargate's event horizon, just as the wormhole established. The effect was immediate. Something slammed into the iris from the other side with tremendous force, the metal ringing like a massive bell. Energy readings spiked on Carter's console. "What is that?" Kimberly asked, staring at the protected gate. "Titanium iris," O'Neill explained tersely. "Nothing can come through the gate without the code to open it. Anything that tries gets—" The impact came again, harder this time. The iris actually buckled slightly. "That's impossible," Carter breathed, watching her readings. "The iris can withstand a direct hit from a tactical nuke. What could—" Her console erupted in warning lights. "Sir, massive energy buildup on the other side. Whatever's hitting the iris, it's not giving up." Billy was already at her side, studying the readings. "That's not conventional weaponry. Look at the harmonic frequency. It's almost like—" His eyes widened. "It's morphological energy. Someone's using the morphin grid to try to break through." "Rita," Tommy said immediately, his hands clenching. "She must have tracked us somehow, used the same dimensional signature to follow us here." "Can she break through?" Hammond asked sharply. "The iris won't hold," Billy confirmed, his fingers flying over Carter's keyboard with her startled permission. "Morphin grid energy doesn't follow normal physical laws. It's not about force, it's about transformation. The iris is matter. The grid can change matter's fundamental structure." As if to confirm his words, the iris began to glow with an eerie green light. Hairline cracks appeared across its surface. "Shut down the gate," Hammond ordered. "Can't, sir," Walter called back. "Something's holding the wormhole open from the other side. We can't disengage." "Then we need to be ready for whatever comes through," O'Neill said, checking his P-90. "Teal'c, staff weapon. Carter, you're with me. Daniel, stay in the control room." "General," Jason stepped forward, "let us morph. Whatever's coming through, we know how to fight it." Hammond looked at the cracking iris, at the 6 teenagers offering to defend a world that wasn't even theirs, and made a command decision. "Do it." The Rangers moved as one, hands crossing to their morphers. "It's morphin' time! Tyrannosaurus, Mastodon, Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, pterodactyl, Tiger Zord." Energy erupted around them, red, black, blue, yellow, pink, and white light that filled the control room like miniature supernovas. When it faded, the Power Rangers stood fully morphed, their armor gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The transformation had taken perhaps 3 seconds. Carter's console was going haywire. "Sir, the energy output from their transformation alone was enough to power this entire complex for a week." The iris shattered. Through the Stargate poured creatures that looked like they'd stepped out of a nightmare. Gray-skinned humanoid figures in dark armor, moving with inhuman coordination. But these weren't putty patrollers. These were something else, something worse. Tengas, Zack identified them immediately. Rita must have sent her elite forces. The Tengas, Rita's upgraded warriors, faster and more dangerous than putties, swarmed into the gate room. Behind them came something larger, a monster wreathed in green energy that roared as it emerged. "Open fire," O'Neill commanded, and the gate room erupted in gunfire. The SF team's bullets tore into the Tengas, and unlike putties, these creatures bled, but they didn't stop. They kept coming,
climbing over their fallen to reach the defenders. "Rangers, go!" Jason commanded, and they leapt from the control room, a 20-foot drop that would have killed normal humans. They hit the gate room floor in perfect combat stances. The battle was immediate and brutal. Jason's power sword flashed red as he carved through 3 Tengas in a single motion. Zack's power axe became a devastating close combat weapon, each strike accompanied by bursts of black energy. Billy's power lance extended to catch Tengas before they could reach the SF teams. Trini's power daggers were a blur of yellow light. Kimberly's power bow fired energy arrows that never missed. Tommy's Saba sword sang as it cut through alien flesh, the sentient weapon's voice audible even over the chaos. "O'Neill, these warriors are formidable," Teal'c observed, his staff weapon firing plasma bolts that complemented the Rangers' attacks. "You think?" O'Neill returned fire, watching a pink-armored teenager flip over a monster's claw swipe and plant an energy arrow in its eye. "Carter, please tell me you're recording this." The monster, some kind of hybrid creature with too many arms and a hide that sparked with stolen morphin grid energy, focused on Tommy. The White Ranger met its charge head-on, Saba clashing against its claws. "You faced the White Ranger, servant of Rita, and that was your first mistake." He fought with a grace and power that even Teal'c paused in appreciation. This was a warrior born, someone who understood combat at an instinctive level. The monster never stood a chance. Within 5 minutes, the gate room was clear. Tengas lay scattered across the floor, some disintegrating into the same energy they'd been made from. The monster was down, Tommy's sword planted in its chest. In the shocked silence that followed, Jason deactivated his helmet, breathing hard. He looked up at the control room where Hammond stood frozen. "General," Jason called up, "I think we need to have another conversation about how we can help." Hammond stared at the 6 teenagers who had just saved his base from an incursion his people barely understood. "I think you're right," he agreed.
The debriefing after the Tenga attack had a very different tone than the first. The Rangers sat at the same conference table, but now they weren't guests under suspicion, they were warriors who'd proven themselves in combat. The shift in SGC personnel attitudes was palpable. 17 hostiles eliminated, 1 major threat neutralized, 0 SGC casualties, Hammond read from the report, looking up at the Rangers with something approaching respect. "Your performance was exceptional." "We've had practice," Jason said simply. "But General, Rita sending Tengas through means she knows where we are. She'll send more, and next time it'll be worse." O'Neill leaned forward. "Okay, so walk me through this. Rita Repulsa, intergalactic witch who's been trying to conquer Earth for 10,000 years, Zack supplied. "Right, witch. She's in your dimension, you're in ours, but she can somehow track you and send her monsters through our Stargate?" Billy nodded. "The dimensional barrier between our realities was already weakened by the Gateway Crystal's explosion. When we came through the Stargate, we left what amounts to a dimensional address marker. Rita's magic is sophisticated enough to follow that marker, and now she's using it as a bridge point. So we've got an interdimensional witch who can now attack us whenever she wants." O'Neill looked at Hammond. "Sir, I'm officially upgrading this from weird to extremely bad." "Indeed," Teal'c agreed. "If this Rita Repulsa can send forces through the Chapa'ai at will, she bypasses all our defensive protocols. The Iris is no longer a reliable defense." Carter was already working the problem, her laptop showing complex calculations. The good news is that forcing a dimensional bridge through the Stargate requires massive energy. Rita can't maintain it indefinitely, and she can't send unlimited forces. The bad news, she looked at Billy, is that if the Goa'uld detected the Rangers' arrival, they also detected this attack. "They will be most interested," Teal'c confirmed. "A system lord who could access other dimensions would have infinite resources, infinite hosts, infinite power." "Great," O'Neill muttered. "So now we've got Rita What's-Her-Face and the Goa'uld interested in dimensional travel. Anyone else want to pile on? Replicators, the Ori, maybe the Furlings could finally show up just to make things extra complicated?" Daniel, who'd been quiet, spoke up thoughtfully. The strategic situation has changed. Rita knows where the Rangers are and she'll keep attacking. We can't keep them confined when they're actively defending this base. But more importantly, he looked at Hammond, they need field experience in our universe if they're going to survive here. They're fighters, but they don't know our galaxy, our enemies, or our capabilities. You're suggesting we send them through the gate, Hammond said slowly, on a mission. A supervised mission, Daniel clarified, with SG-1, low-risk planet, standard reconnaissance. Let them see how we operate, teach them about the gold, and evaluate how their abilities function off-world. Trini leaned forward. With respect, Dr. Jackson, we don't need babysitting. We've run independent operations against Rita's forces for over a year. In your universe, Carter interjected gently, but out there, she gestured toward the gate, it's different. The Goa'uld aren't like Rita's monsters. They're intelligent, organized, and they have armies and fleets. Their technology is different from anything you've faced. You need to understand what you're dealing with.
Tommy, who'd been studying Teal'c throughout the conversation, spoke up. She's right. We're operating blind here. In our world, we know the threats, the terrain, the rules. Here, we don't. If we're going to help, and if we're going to survive until we can get home, we need intel. Jason looked at his team, reading their expressions, then turned to Hammond. We'll accept Dr. Jackson's suggestion. One mission with SG-1, supervised, to learn your operating procedures. But General, understand, we're not going to sit in this base while Rita attacks and people die. That's not who we are. Hammond studied them for a long moment, then made his decision. Colonel O'Neill, you'll take SG-1 and the Rangers through the gate tomorrow at 0800 hours. P4X639, standard reconnaissance. Show them how we do things, evaluate their capabilities in the field, and brief them on Goa'uld tactical doctrine. Consider this a trial run. Yes, sir, O'Neill acknowledged, though his expression suggested he thought taking teenagers through the Stargate was insane. All right, Rangers, welcome to SG-1's babysitting service. Try not to die in embarrassing ways that'll generate paperwork. We'll do our best, Kimberly said with a slight smile. The meeting adjourned, and as the Rangers headed back to their quarters to prepare, Carter pulled Billy aside. Before tomorrow, I want to run some tests on your morphers and the energy signatures. If we're going through the gate together, I need to understand how your technology will interact with ours. Plus, she couldn't quite hide her excitement, I have about 10,000 questions about the morphin grid. Billy grinned. I'd be happy to help. Zordon always said knowledge should be shared to defeat evil. I think he'd approve of collaborating with Earth's defenders, even if it's not our Earth. In the control room, Hammond stood with O'Neill and Teal'c, watching the Rangers through the observation window. Your assessment, Colonel? Hammond asked quietly. O'Neill considered his words carefully. They're good, sir. Scary good for kids their age. Disciplined, coordinated, and they handle themselves like special forces operators. But they're used to fighting monsters and magic. The Goa'uld are going to be a different kind of threat. More subtle, more political, more, he searched for the word, evil, I guess. Rita sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. The Goa'uld are the real thing. Will they be able to adapt? They'd better, O'Neill said grimly, because if the Goa'uld get their hands on dimensional travel or this morphin grid thing, we're going to need all the Rangers we can get. Teal'c added his perspective. They have honor. They fight not for glory, but to protect the innocent. This is the mark of true warriors. I would stand beside them in battle. Hammond nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we find out if teenagers in colored armor can handle the real threats of this galaxy. Dismissed. As the SGC prepared for its most unusual mission yet, none of them knew that on a distant world, a Goa'uld underlord had intercepted fragmentary reports of the SGC attack. The reports spoke of warriors in colored armor, of impossible energy, of power that defied understanding. The underlord's eyes glowed as he opened a communication channel to his master. Apophis would be most interested in this development, and the System Lord was already making plans.
P4X639 was supposed to be a milk run. The planet was classified as low risk, uninhabited ruins, no Stargate activity in months, minimal strategic value, perfect for a training mission. When SG-1 and the Rangers stepped through the event horizon at 0800 hours, they expected a few hours of reconnaissance, some basic instruction, and an early return to base. The universe had other plans. "Wow," Kimberly breathed as they emerged on the other side. The Stargate stood in the center of a clearing surrounded by ancient stone structures, their architecture unlike anything on Earth. Twin suns hung in an amber sky, casting double shadows across weathered monuments. "We just traveled to another planet in seconds." "Welcome to the Stargate program," O'Neill said dryly, P90 already up and scanning for threats. "Carter, telemetry?" "Consistent with previous readings, sir," Carter confirmed, checking her equipment. "Atmosphere breathable, no energy signatures, no life signs within scanner range. Looks clear." Daniel was already moving toward the nearest structure, his archaeologist instincts overriding tactical caution. "These ruins are consistent with early gold architecture, probably Second Dynasty. The hieroglyphs suggest this was a mining colony, likely abandoned when the Naquadah deposits were exhausted." "Stay sharp, people," Jason said quietly to his team. The Rangers had morphed before stepping through, a precaution O'Neill had approved despite the supposedly safe environment. "New planet, new rules. Standard formation. Billy, scan for anything unusual. Trini, Zach, flanks. Kim, high ground. Tommy, you're with me on point." O'Neill raised an eyebrow at the efficient deployment. "Not bad, Red Ranger. You've done this before?" "We've cleared plenty of areas where Rita's forces might be hiding," replied Jason, his helmet scanning the ruins. "Same principle. Secure the area, identify threats, protect civilians if present." "Except there are no civilians here," Teal'c observed, his staff weapon ready. "This world has been dead for centuries." They moved into the ruins in two coordinated groups, SG-1 with their military precision, the Rangers with their practiced teamwork. Billy's scanner beeped constantly as he cataloged the alien technology embedded in the stone structures. "Captain Carter, you'll want to see this. There are crystalline matrices in these walls, very similar to the Naquadah-based systems in the Stargate, but the configuration is different, almost like they were designed to amplify energy rather than generate it." Carter jogged over, her scientific curiosity immediately engaged. "An amplification network? For what purpose?" "Unknown, but look at the resonance patterns." Billy showed her his scanner readings. "If I'm interpreting this correctly, these structures weren't just buildings. They were part of a planet-wide energy collection system." Daniel joined them, examining the hieroglyphs with growing excitement. "That would match the inscriptions. These symbols reference the light of the gods, classic gold terminology for their technology. But there's something else here, a warning about darkness that feeds on light." "Cryptic warnings are never good," O'Neill muttered. "Carter, Billy, wrap up the science fair. We're doing a quick survey and heading home." That's when Zach's voice crackled over the comms. "Jason, we've got movement. West side, in the shadows between structures. Can't get a clear visual." The Rangers and SG-1 converged on Zach's position immediately. The Black Ranger pointed toward a gap between two collapsed walls, where shadows seemed unnaturally deep despite the twin suns overhead. "I saw something move in there. Fast, low to the ground, definitely not human." Teal'c's expression grew grim. "I have encountered such shadows before. They are not natural." "Teal'c?" O'Neill's tone sharpened. "What are we dealing with?" Before the Jaffa could answer, the shadows moved, not the natural shift of darkness as clouds passed overhead, but a deliberate, predatory movement. Tendrils of pure black emerged from the gap, writhing like living smoke. "That's not gold technology," Carter said, her scanner going haywire. "That's not technology at all. It's... God, I don't know what it is. Pure energy? Dark matter? The readings don't make sense." The shadows erupted outward in a wave of darkness that consumed light itself. The Rangers opened fire instinctively. Energy arrows, laser blasts from Billy's blade blaster, Tommy's Saba sword beam. The attacks hit the shadows and vanished, absorbed without effect.
"Fall back to the gate," O'Neill commanded, firing his P-90 in controlled bursts that did exactly nothing. "Move, move, move!" They ran, but the shadows were faster. Tendrils rashed out, wrapping around Trini's ankle and yanking her off her feet. She hit the ground hard, her yellow armor sparking as the darkness began to crawl up her leg.
Trini! Zack was there instantly, his power axe coming down on the tendril. The blade, charged with morphin grid energy, actually cut through the shadow. It recoiled with a sound like a scream, releasing Trini. "The morphin grid works!" Billy shouted, understanding immediately. "It's the only thing that can interact with it. Our weapons can hurt it." "Then we make a stand," Jason decided, his tactical mind processing the situation. "SG-1, get to the gate and dial home. We'll hold it off." "We're not leaving you," O'Neill snapped back, but even as he spoke, more shadows were emerging from the ruins, dozens of tendrils, all converging on their position. Tommy moved to the front, Saba raised high. "Rangers, power weapons, full output." His sword blazed with white light, and he drove it into the ground. A wave of pure morphin grid energy exploded outward, creating a dome of light around the combined teams. The shadows hissed and retreated, unable to penetrate the barrier. But Tommy was already straining, the effort of maintaining the shield visible in how his armor flickered. "I can't hold this long," he grunted. "Maybe 2 minutes." Daniel was frantically studying his notes. The inscriptions, they mention a seal, a prison created by the system lords to contain something they couldn't destroy. "I think we just broke it open by activating the energy amplification network with your technology." "We didn't activate anything," Billy protested. "Your morphers," Carter realized with horror. "They're constantly emitting morphin grid energy. When you came through the gate, when you morphed, that energy fed into the amplification network. It was designed to channel Goa'uld power, but your energy was similar enough to trigger it, and whatever was imprisoned here just got a power boost," O'Neill finished. "Fantastic. Carter, dial the gate. Daniel, Teal'c, cover her. Rangers, can you fight this thing?" "We can try," Jason said grimly. "Kim, cover fire. Billy, Zack, Trini, rotating strikes. Tommy, drop the shield on my mark and we hit it with everything we've got." Kimberly's power bow sang as she fired arrow after arrow into the encroaching darkness. Each one created a small burst of light where it hit, pushing the shadows back temporarily. Billy, Zack, and Trini positioned themselves in a triangle formation around Tommy. Behind them, Carter was frantically dialing the DHD. Come on," she muttered as chevrons locked. The 7th engaged, and the Stargate erupted with its familiar wormhole. "Gates open," O'Neill called. "Everyone through, now." "Tommy, now," Jason commanded. The White Ranger released the shield and immediately joined the assault. 5 Rangers unleashed their full power simultaneously. Sword, axe, lance, daggers, and bow, all firing concentrated morphin grid energy at the mass of shadows. The resulting explosion of light was blinding. The shadows screamed, an impossible sound that resonated in their bones, and retreated into the ruins, but they didn't disappear. They regrouped, gathering strength, preparing for another assault. "Go, go, go!" Jason pushed his team toward the gate. SG-1 was already through, Carter and Daniel first, then Teal'c providing covering fire with his staff weapon, even though it was useless against their enemy. The Rangers hit the event horizon in sequence, Kimberly, Trini, Billy, Zack, all diving through to safety. Jason and Tommy were last, backing toward the gate as the shadows surged forward one final time. "Together," Tommy said, and both Rangers fired their weapons simultaneously. The combined blast of red and white energy held the darkness back just long enough for them to throw themselves backward through the wormhole. They tumbled out into SGC's gate room, the wormhole collapsing behind them. Alarms were already blaring, the iris slamming shut as a precaution. For a moment, there was only heavy breathing and the pounding of adrenaline-fueled hearts. Then O'Neill's voice, flat and sarcastic. "Well, that was fun. Who wants to go on another milk run? Anyone? No takers?" Hammond's voice came over the intercom, deadly serious. "SG-1, Rangers, debriefing room. Now, we need to know exactly what you just released." As they demorphed and headed for the briefing, none of them noticed the small tendril of shadow that had clung to Jason's boot, absorbing just enough morphin grid energy to survive the journey through the wormhole. It slithered away into SGC's ventilation system, dark and patient and hungry. The debriefing lasted 3 hours and resolved nothing. So let me get this straight, Hammond said, rubbing his temples. An ancient Gewald prison was triggered by the Rangers' energy signatures, released some kind of shadow entity that feeds on light and energy, and we barely escaped. Did I miss anything? The entity is still on P4X639, Daniel added, leafing through his notes. The inscriptions called it Kek, Egyptian god of darkness and chaos. The Gewald couldn't kill it, so they imprisoned it and built an amplification network to keep it contained, using their own energy as a power source for the seal. But when the Gewald abandoned the planet, the seal weakened, Carter continued. It might have held for centuries more, except, she looked at the Rangers apologetically, the Morphin Grid energy was similar enough to Gewald power that it fed into the network. Instead of strengthening the seal, it gave the entity exactly what it needed to break free. Billy looked stricken. We accidentally released an imprisoned demon. Zordon would be disappointed. You didn't know, Trini said quietly, putting a hand on his shoulder. None of us did. The question is what we do about it, O'Neill said. That thing is still on P4X639, and presumably it's not going to stay there forever. Can it use the Stargate? Unknown, Adam admitted, but if it can manipulate energy and it's intelligent, it might figure out how to activate the DHD, or it could wait for someone else to open the gate and hitch a ride. We should destroy the planet, Teal'c said bluntly. A coordinated orbital bombardment would eliminate the threat permanently. We don't have those capabilities, Hammond reminded him. Our fleet assets are limited, and requisitioning a ship for a planetary strike would require explaining why to levels above my clearance, levels that don't officially know about the Stargate program's full activities. Then we go back, Jason said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. We released it. We should be the ones to stop it. Absolutely not, Hammond said firmly. You barely escaped the first time. I'm not sending anyone back to that death trap. With respect, sir, Tommy leaned forward. Our weapons are the only things that could hurt it. Your energy weapons, your bullets, they did nothing. But Morphin Grid energy affects it. We're the only chance of stopping this thing before it escapes and threatens other worlds. O'Neill shook his head. Kid, I appreciate the heroic sacrifice offer, but it's not a sacrifice, it's tactical reality. We go in prepared this time. Billy and Captain Carter work together to understand the amplification network. We figure out how to reverse the process, use our energy to rebuild the seal instead of breaking it. We fix our mistake. Hammond studied the young man who'd been thrust into his facility less than 48 hours ago. Jason Lee Scott carried himself like someone 3 times his age, with the weight of responsibility and command that couldn't be faked. The general had seen that look before, in soldiers who'd been through hell and came out still willing to go back if it meant protecting others. Captain Carter, Hammond said slowly, is what he's suggesting even possible? Carter exchanged a glance with Billy, and they engaged in a rapid technical discussion that left everyone else in the room lost within seconds. Finally, she turned back to Hammond. Theoretically, yes, the amplification network was designed to contain the entity using a constant energy feed. If we could recalibrate it to accept Morphin Grid energy specifically and channel that energy into reconstructing the seal, it might work. But she held up a hand as Jason started to speak. It would require someone to maintain a constant connection to the network while the seal rebuilds. That means staying on the planet, exposed to the entity for potentially hours. How many people? Jason asked. 1 ranger, Billy calculated quickly. Maybe 2 for redundancy. The morphers can maintain the connection and channel the grid energy through our neural interface, but whoever does it will be completely vulnerable. They'll need to focus entirely on maintaining the energy flow, which means they can't defend themselves. So we need bait, Zach said quietly, understanding immediately. Someone plugged into the network while the rest of us keep that shadow thing occupied. For hours, Kimberly added, against something that nearly killed us in minutes?
"We've faced worse odds," Trini said with more confidence than she probably felt. Hammond looked at O'Neill. "Colonel?" O'Neill sighed heavily. "I hate this plan. For the record, I officially hate this plan." But he met Jason's eyes. "They're right. If that thing gets loose and we could have stopped it, that's on us. We go back, we do this right, and we hope like hell it works." "SG-1 will accompany," Teal'c stated, not asked. "Of course we will," Daniel said, though he looked about as enthusiastic as someone volunteering for a root canal. "We can't let them go alone." Carter was already pulling up schematics on her laptop. "I'll need 2 hours to build the interface device. Billy, I'll need your help with the grid energy specifications. We're essentially building a bridge between your technology and ancient-derived Goa'uld architecture." "I can do that," Billy confirmed. Hammond stood. "You have your 2 hours. After that, SG-1 and the Rangers return to P4X639 for what I pray isn't a suicide mission. Colonel O'Neill, you're in tactical command. Ranger Jason, your team handles the entity engagement. Captain Carter and Ranger Billy, you build me a miracle. Dismissed." As the room cleared, Hammond caught Jason's arm. "Son, you don't have to do this. You're not from this universe. This isn't your responsibility." Jason met the general's eyes steadily. "Sir, in our world, we fight for people who can't fight for themselves. That doesn't change just because we're in a different dimension. If we can stop this thing, we have to try. That's what being a Power Ranger means." Hammond nodded slowly. "Then Godspeed, Ranger, and come back alive. I've gotten used to having you around." 2 hours later, Carter and Billy emerged from the lab carrying a device that looked like a morphed fusion of Goa'uld technology and Power Ranger tech. Crystalline matrices wired into modified morpher circuitry, all housed in a frame of alien metal. "This is either brilliant or catastrophically stupid, possibly both. Billy, you want to explain?" The Blue Ranger held up the device. "This interface will connect directly to my morpher and channel grid energy through the amplification network. Once activated, I'll need to maintain the connection for approximately 3 hours while the seal rebuilds itself. During that time, I'll be basically unconscious. My mind will be focused on regulating the energy flow." "Why you?" Kimberly asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "Because I built it, and I understand the technical requirements better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I'm most likely to fix it on the fly." "We'll keep you safe, whatever it takes," Jason promised. At 1400 hours, SG-1 and the Power Rangers stood before the Stargate once more. The wormhole engaged, its blue surface rippling with possibility and danger. "Let's go fix what we broke," O'Neill said, and stepped through. The Rangers followed, morphed and ready. P4X639 waited on the other side, its twin suns casting long shadows across ancient ruins. Somewhere in that darkness, something ancient and hungry stirred, sensing the return of the energy that had freed it. The battle for P4X639 was about to begin.
The shadows attacked within seconds of their arrival. This time, SG-1 and the Rangers were ready. The moment they emerged from the event horizon, the team split into predetermined positions, Billy racing toward the central amplification node with Carter and Daniel as escort, while the remaining Rangers and O'Neill's team formed a defensive perimeter. The shadow entity had grown stronger. Where before it had been tendrils and wisps, now it coalesced into almost solid forms, vaguely humanoid shapes of living darkness that moved with predatory intelligence. They flowed across the ruins like oil, absorbing the twin suns' light and leaving cold emptiness in their wake. "Contact!" Zack called, his power axe already swinging. The blade connected with a shadow form, and this time the entity felt it. The creature recoiled with that bone-rattling scream, its form dissipating before reforming several meters away. "They're learning," Tommy observed, Saba singing through the air. "That one dodged my follow-up strike. It's adapting to our attack patterns." "Then we adapt faster," Jason commanded, his power sword blazing red. "Trini, Kim, flanking pattern Delta. Zack, Tommy, with me, center push. Keep them away from Billy."
At the amplification node, Billy was already connecting his interface device to the ancient gold technology. His hands moved with practiced precision, even as Carter covered him with her P90 and Daniel nervously gripped his own weapon. "The crystalline matrices are still active," Billy reported, his scanner displaying complex energy patterns. "I can tap into the network, but Captain Carter, these readings, the entity has been feeding on the residual power. It's significantly stronger than when we first encountered it." "Can you still rebuild the seal?" Carter asked, firing a burst at a shadow that ventured too close. The bullets passed through harmlessly, but the noise made it hesitate. "Yes, but it'll take longer. 4 hours, maybe 5. Billy's fingers flew across the interface controls. "I'm initiating the connection now." He pressed the modified morpher against the node, and light erupted, blue grid energy flowing into ancient alien circuits. Billy gasped as the connection established, his entire body going rigid. "Billy!" Daniel moved to catch him as the Blue Ranger collapsed, but Carter stopped him. "Don't break the connection. His consciousness is in the network now. He's okay, but we can't move him until the seal is complete." Billy lay against the stone node, eyes closed, his armor pulsing with rhythmic blue light as morphin grid energy channeled through him into the planet's amplification system. Around them, the ruins began to glow with that same blue radiance as the ancient network awakened. The shadow entity noticed immediately. A massive wave of darkness surged toward Billy's position, a tsunami of living shadow that promised to consume everything in its path. The Rangers met it head-on. "Full power, now!" Jason ordered, and 5 Rangers unleashed a combined energy blast that lit up the alien sky. The wave of darkness shattered against their assault, fragmenting into dozens of smaller forms that scattered and regrouped. "Teal'c, high ground!" O'Neill barked, taking position behind a fallen pillar. The Jaffa warrior leapt onto a ruined wall with superhuman grace, his staff weapon providing suppressing fire that did nothing to the shadows but drew their attention away from Billy's vulnerable position. "O'Neill, my weapon is ineffective," Teal'c called down. "I know, just keep looking intimidating." Kimberly's arrows stitched light through the darkness, each one buying seconds of breathing room. "Running low on power, these things just keep coming." "We don't need to kill them," Jason realized, his tactical mind working through the problem. "We just need to hold them off until Billy completes the seal. Buy time, conserve energy, defensive formation around the node." The Rangers collapsed their perimeter, forming a tight circle around Billy's position, with SG-1 integrated into their defensive line. It was a battlefield marriage of 2 very different combat styles, military precision meeting superhero action, and somehow it worked. Tommy took point, Saba's energy blasts creating a no man's land of light that the shadows couldn't cross without taking damage. Jack and Trini held the flanks, their weapons moving in perfect synchronization from years of training together. Jason anchored the rear, his sword work efficient and devastating. Kimberly provided ranged support from the center, her arrows finding targets with unerring accuracy. "Daniel, how's our exit looking?" O'Neill called, dropping an empty magazine and slamming in a fresh one, despite knowing it was useless. "Gate's clear for now," Daniel reported from his position near the DHD, "but if this goes much longer—" A shadow form materialized directly in front of him, hominoid and terrifyingly solid. Daniel fired point blank, his bullets passing through harmlessly. The entity raised an arm to strike. Trini was there in a flash of yellow, her power daggers crossed to catch the shadow's limb. Energy crackled where her weapons touched the darkness, and the creature screamed. "Stay close to us, Dr. Jackson," Trini said calmly, driving the entity back with precise strikes. "Your weapons can't hurt them, but you're still a target."
"Thanks," Daniel managed, thoroughly unnerved. Hours blurred together in a continuous cycle of attack and defense. The Rangers rotated positions to manage power consumption, calling out energy levels to coordinate their efforts. SG-1 adapted, learning to read the Rangers' movements and fill gaps in their defense with positioning and distraction tactics. "Energy at 60%, Jason called. 55, Kimberly reported. 62, Tommy added. Carter checked her watch. Billy's been connected for 3 hours. We're past the halfway point. Shadows are getting more aggressive, Zack observed, breathing hard. They know we're getting tired. Indeed, the entity seemed to understand that time was against it. The attacks intensified, multiple shadow forms coordinating their assaults to probe for weaknesses. One nearly reached Billy before Tommy intercepted with a desperate lunge, Saba's blade carving through darkness. They're trying to break the connection, Carter realized. If they can disrupt Billy before the seal completes, they won't, Jason stated with absolute certainty. Rangers, close formation. We hold this line no matter what. The entity gathered itself for a final massive assault, every fragment of shadow coalescing into a single towering form that loomed over the ruins. It was enormous, a pillar of darkness that blocked out the twin suns. That's not good, O'Neill understated. That's really not good, Daniel agreed. The Shadow Titan raised arms like tree trunks, preparing to crash down on Billy's position and end the seal before it could complete. Rangers, Jason's voice rang across the battlefield. Combine power, everything we've got left. The 5 active Rangers came together, their weapons joining in the iconic formation they'd perfected through countless battles. Power Rangers, they shouted in unison, and their combined energy erupted in a beam of pure Morphin Grid power, red, black, yellow, pink, and white spiraling together into a lance of light. The beam struck the Shadow Titan's center mass, and this time the entity didn't just recoil, it screamed, a sound that shook the very stones beneath their feet as the concentrated grid energy tore through its form. At the amplification node, Billy's armor blazed with brilliant blue light. The seal was complete. All across P4X639, the ancient network activated for the first time in millennia. Blue energy raced through crystalline circuits buried in the ruins, creating a web of light that spread across the entire planet. The Shadow Titan writhed as the web closed around it, pulling it down, compressing it, forcing it back into the dimensional prison the Goa'uld had created so long ago. "It's working!" Carter shouted over the chaos. The entity fought, lashing out with desperate fury, but it was too late. The seal closed like a fist, and the Shadow Titan collapsed in on itself, shrinking rapidly until it vanished entirely back into whatever hell it had escaped from. Silence fell across the ruins. Billy's eyes opened, and he gasped for air like a man surfacing from deep water. His connection to the network severed, and he would have fallen if Carter hadn't caught him. Did it work?" Billy asked weakly. "It worked," Carter confirmed, helping him sit up. "You did it." The Rangers gathered around their teammate, demorphing as the immediate danger passed. They were exhausted, their civilian clothes soaked with sweat, but they were grinning. 4 hours, Jason said, checking his watch with disbelief. "We held for 4 hours against that thing." 4 hours and 17 minutes, Billy corrected with a tired smile. "I was counting." O'Neill approached, and despite everything, he was smiling too. "Not bad, Rangers, not bad at all. You just saved this planet and probably a dozen others that thing would have reached eventually." Teal'c bowed his head respectfully. "You have proven yourselves worthy warriors. It has been an honor to fight beside you." "The honor was ours," Tommy replied, returning the gesture. Daniel was already examining the now stabilized amplification network. "This is incredible. The seal should hold indefinitely now that it's properly powered. We'll need to classify this planet as restricted, maybe post a warning beacon, but the immediate threat is contained." "Then let's go home," O'Neill said. "I need about 10 hours of sleep and a very large beer. Not necessarily in that order." As they gathered at the Stargate and Carter dialed Earth, Billy turned to look back at the glowing ruins one last time. "Captain, the energy signature we left here, could Rita track it again?" Carter considered the question thoughtfully. "The dimensional walker would be different now. The seal is powered by grid energy, but it's stable, contained, not the chaotic burst that brought you here. "I think you're safe." "Good," Billy nodded, then joined his team at the event horizon. They stepped through together, SG-1 and the Power Rangers, exhausted, victorious, and already becoming legends in a program built on impossible missions and improbable heroes. Behind them, P4X-639's twin suns set on ruins that would stand guardian over a prisoner for another 10,000 years. The entity was sealed, but in the depths of its dimensional prison, it remembered the taste of great energy and the color of the warriors who had defeated it. And it was patient. The shadow in SGC's ventilation system had been patient, feeding on electrical systems and growing slowly stronger. It had absorbed enough morphin grid energy during the P4X-639 battle to maintain consciousness across dimensions, and now it waited for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came 72 hours after the Rangers' return, during the midnight shift when SGC operated with minimal personnel. Sergeant Chen was checking power distribution on level 21 when his flashlight died. Then the emergency lights. Then everything went dark. "Control, this is Chen. I've got a complete power failure in Section 7. Switching to backup systems." His radio cut to static. The darkness moved. Within minutes, 15 levels of Stargate Command were in total blackout. Emergency protocols activated automatically, sealing blast doors and triggering alarms that brought General Hammond and his senior staff running from quarters and offices throughout the complex. The Rangers were in the commissary when the lights died. They'd been staying at SGC while Billy and Carter worked on a way to send them home. 3 days of increasing frustration as dimensional physics proved more stubborn than expected. "That's not a normal power outage," Jason said immediately, already on his feet. The others followed his lead, hands moving instinctively toward their morphers. "Jason," Tommy's voice was tight with recognition. "That darkness in the corner, it's spreading." They watched in horror as shadows crept across the walls, moving against the faint emergency lighting, pooling and growing like living ink. "It followed us back," Trini breathed. "A piece of the entity came through the Stargate." "And it's been feeding on SGC's power systems," Billy realized with growing dread. "For 3 days. It's strong enough now to manifest fully." The shadow exploded outward, filling the commissary with suffocating darkness. The Rangers morphed instantly, their transformation providing the only light as colored energy flared against the black. "Everyone out," Jason commanded the handful of personnel in the room. "Get to the surface, now." Morphed and glowing with grid energy, the Rangers could see what the normal SGC staff couldn't. The shadow had formed now, coalescing into a smaller version of the Titan they'd faced on P4X-639. It wasn't planetary scale, but trapped in SGC's corridors, it was more than deadly enough. They fought it through the complex, a running battle that lit up dark hallways with energy blasts and weapons fire. The entity was learning faster now, remembering their tactics from the previous encounter, adapting its defenses. "It's heading for the gate room," Kimberly realized as the shadow flowed around their attacks. "If it reaches the Stargate, it could escape to any planet in the network," Billy finished grimly. "We have to stop it here." They reached the gate room to find SG-1 already there, armed but largely helpless against an enemy their weapons couldn't touch. O'Neill was coordinating SF teams through his radio, trying to evacuate non-essential personnel while maintaining some semblance of defensive perimeter. "Rangers, nice of you to join the party," O'Neill called. "Any chance you brought instructions on how to kill this thing permanently?" "Working on it," Jason replied, his sword intercepting a shadow tendril aimed at Carter's position. "Billy, options." The Blue Ranger was already analyzing the situation, his mind working at superhuman speed. The amplification network on P4X-639 was planetary scale, but SGC has its own power systems, and the Stargate itself generates massive energy during activation. If we could reverse the polarity, "English, Billy," Zack shouted as he axe-cleaved through shadow forms. "Use the Stargate as a containment device," Billy clarified. "Dial an address, but don't establish a wormhole. The energy buildup would create a localized field we could trap the entity in, then channel grid energy through the gate to seal it permanently." Carter understood immediately. "That's insane. The power surge could overload the gate, destroy half the complex." "Or it could work," Billy countered. "We're out of options." Hammond's voice came over the intercom from the control room. "Do it. Whatever you're planning, do it now. This thing is tearing my base apart." Carter sprinted for the DHD while Billy provided cover fire. Her fingers flew across the controls, dialing an address, any address, but stopping before the 7th chevron locked. "This is as far as I can go without engaging the wormhole," she shouted over the chaos. "The gate's building up energy, but it needs somewhere to discharge." "Rangers, we need to drive it into the gate's event horizon space," Jason commanded. "All together, coordinated assault." The 5 Rangers moved in perfect unison, a dance they'd perfected through a year of fighting as a team. Their combined attack drove the shadow entity back toward the inactive Stargate. The creature realized the trap too late. As it touched the gate's inner ring, Billy made his move. "Now, Captain Carter, lock the 7th chevron." Carter slammed the final symbol home. The Stargate tried to activate, tried to create a wormhole, but with the entity caught in the event horizon space, the wormhole couldn't stabilize. Energy built up catastrophically, creating exactly the kind of unstable field Billy had predicted. "Everyone down," O'Neill yelled, and SG-1 hit the deck. The Rangers channeled their grid energy directly into the gate, using their morphers to feed power into the building cascade. 5 streams of colored light, red, black, blue, yellow, pink, spiraled into the Stargate's center where the shadow entity thrashed and screamed. "Tommy, now!" Jason called. The White Ranger had climbed to the control room during the chaos. From there, he could see the entire gate room, could target the entity with Saba's full power. "White Ranger, Tiger Power!" Tommy shouted, and Saba unleashed a beam of pure white grid energy that struck like a lightning bolt from heaven. The combination was devastating. 5 Rangers channeling power through the gate, 1 Ranger attacking from above, all focused on a target trapped in an unstable energy field. The shadow entity never stood a chance. It detonated in a pulse of light that knocked everyone in the gate room flat. When vision cleared, the Stargate was smoking but intact, its surface covered in a thin layer of what looked like frost. The entity was gone, truly gone this time. Its energy dispersed into the wormhole's failed connection and scattered across the galaxy. Silence fell across SGC. Then, slowly, lights began flickering back on as power systems rebooted. Hammond's voice came over the intercom, shaken but steady. "Status report. Someone tell me we still have a facility." "Gate room secure, sir," O'Neill reported, getting to his feet with a groan. "The entity is terminated, I think. Rangers?" Jason demorphed, his face exhausted but certain. "It's gone. We destroyed it completely. There won't be any more pieces hiding in ventilation systems." "Thank God," Hammond breathed. Then, with gathering strength, "All personnel, this is Hammond. Threat neutralized. Begin damage assessment and system restoration. Well done, people. Well done." The Rangers gathered around Billy, who was staring at the Stargate with a mixture of awe and horror. "That shouldn't have worked," he said quietly. "The energy levels, the cascade failure, the dimensional stress, we were one calculation off from destroying the entire complex." "But you weren't," Carter said, joining them with deep respect in her voice. "Billy, that was the most brilliant piece of improvisational physics I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot." "We make a pretty good team," O'Neill admitted, approaching the group. "Earth's defenders, your universe or ours, we get the job done." Teok placed a hand on Jason's shoulder. "You have saved this facility and all who serve within it. The Tauri owe the Power Rangers a great debt." "You don't owe us anything," Jason replied. "We were just doing what we always do, protecting people from threats they shouldn't have to face." Daniel had been suspiciously quiet, studying something on his tablet. Now he looked up with an expression caught between excitement and concern. "Guys, I think I found something. Billy, Carter, you're going to want to see this." They gathered around Daniel's tablet, which showed complex calculations and energy readings from the gate's failed wormhole attempt. "What are we looking at?" Carter asked. When the wormhole destabilized, with the Rangers channeling grid energy through it, it created a dimensional echo, a brief connection to their home universe. It only lasted a fraction of a second, but it was there. Billy's eyes widened. "You're saying..." "I'm saying if we could recreate those exact conditions, we might be able to open a stable gateway back to your dimension," Carter finished, her mind already racing through possibilities. "It would require precise calculations, perfect timing, and probably a dozen things we haven't thought of yet, but theoretically, we could go home," Kimberly breathed. The 6 Rangers looked at each other, hope warring with the friendships they'd built over the past days. They'd come to respect SG-1, to admire the SGC's mission, to understand that this Earth needed defenders just as much as theirs did. "How long?" Jason asked quietly. Carter and Billy exchanged glances. "A week," Carter estimated, "maybe less if we can adapt the interface device Billy built for P4X639. "Then we have a week," Tommy said, "to make sure we're leaving this Earth better defended than we found it." Hammond had joined them in the gate room, and he nodded with understanding. "We'll take that week, Rangers, and we'll use it to learn everything we can from you. Your tactics, your technology, your experience fighting threats most of my people can't even imagine. When you go home, you'll leave us better prepared for whatever comes through that gate. And when we get home," Jason added, "we'll know that somewhere out there, across dimensions, there's another Earth fighting the good fight. That's worth knowing." O'Neill grinned. "Sappy, Red Ranger, but I'll allow it. Now, who wants to help us assess damage and rebuild my base? Fair warning, it's going to involve a lot of boring reports and probably some light janitorial work." "We're in," Zach said immediately, and the other Rangers nodded agreement. As SGC's personnel began the long process of recovery and repair, the Power Rangers worked alongside them. They were still strangers in a strange world, but they were no longer alone. And somewhere in the galaxy, sensors on a Goa'uld mothership had detected the massive energy spike from Earth's Stargate. System Lord Apophis studied the reports with growing interest, his eyes glowing with parasitic intelligence. The warriors in colored armor had demonstrated power unlike anything in his arsenal. Power that could challenge even the gods. He began making plans.
The week that followed transformed SGC in ways no one had anticipated. Billy and Carter worked around the clock in the lab, their collaboration producing breakthrough after breakthrough. They'd mapped the dimensional echo from the gate incident, calculated the precise energy harmonics needed to recreate it, and built an interface that could theoretically open a stable bridge between dimensions. Theoretically being the key word, Carter admitted on day 6, staring at their creation with exhausted pride. "We won't know if it works until we try it." "And if it doesn't work?" Billy asked quietly. "Then you're stuck here, or worse, scattered across dimensional space with no way back to either universe." Carter met his eyes. "Billy, I have to be honest, this is the most experimental, dangerous thing I've ever attempted. The margin for error is microscopic." "But you think it'll work?" Carter smiled slightly. "I think between your understanding of grid energy and my experience with Stargate mechanics, we've done something remarkable. Yes, I think it'll work." While the scientists worked, the other Rangers had been equally busy. Jason and Tommy spent hours with Teal'c and O'Neill, sharing tactical knowledge, how to fight opponents with supernatural abilities, how to coordinate in high-mobility combat, how to maintain morale against overwhelming odds. "The key is unity," Jason explained during one session. "We're not 6 individuals, we're one team with 6 parts. When Zack moves left, I know to cover right without him saying a word. When Kim needs time to line up a shot, Tommy and I create that space automatically." O'Neill nodded thoughtfully. "Your SG teams operate with similar principles, but your level of synchronization is something else. Years of training?" "1.5 years," Tommy corrected. "But when you're fighting for your world every week, you learn fast or you die." Teal'c had been especially interested in their philosophy. "You fight without hatred," Teal'c observed. "Even against enemies who seek to destroy you, there is no malice in your combat. How is this possible?" "Zordon taught us that hate corrupts," Trini explained. She'd been working with the Jaffa warrior on meditation techniques, finding common ground between his Kelnarim and her own martial arts discipline. "We fight because we must, to protect innocence, but we don't fight because we enjoy causing pain. There's a difference." Zack and Kimberly had focused on SGC's defensive protocols, working with the SCF teams to develop rapid response procedures for supernatural threats. They'd run dozens of drills, teaching soldiers how to recognize and react to enemies that didn't follow normal rules of engagement. Most threats you'll face are physical, Goa'uld, Jaffa, technology-based enemies. But if something comes through that gate that bends reality, magic, dimensional powers, energy beings, you need to adapt fast. Create distance, call for support, and don't assume your weapons will work the way they're supposed to. The cultural exchange went both ways. The Rangers learned about the Stargate network, the various alien races throughout the galaxy, the political complexities of fighting a war against system lords who rule through deception as much as force. Daniel had been invaluable, teaching them galactic history and helping them understand the scope of the conflict. The Goa'uld aren't like Rita, they're not cartoon villains. They're parasites who've enslaved billions across thousands of years. They're intelligent, manipulative, and they genuinely believe they're gods. That makes them more dangerous than any monster. "We've faced intelligent enemies before," Jason said. "Lord Zed, Rita's superior. He's cunning, strategic, and powerful. We learned not to underestimate him." "Then you understand. The Goa'uld are the same, just with armies and starships." On the 7th day, everything came together. Hammond called a meeting in the briefing room. SG-1, the Rangers, and senior SGC staff. The atmosphere was heavy with impending farewell. "Captain Carter, Ranger Billy, your report," Hammond began. Carter stood, professional despite her exhaustion. "Sir, we've completed the dimensional bridge interface. Testing shows a 92% probability of successful connection to the Ranger's home universe. The remaining 8% represents variables we simply can't account for without actual dimensional travel data." "Those are acceptable odds given the circumstances. When can you be ready?" "Tomorrow morning, sir, 0800 hours. Carter glanced at the Rangers. "If you're still certain you want to do this."
Jason looked at his team. They'd discussed this privately, weighing their responsibility to their own Earth against the connections they'd built here, but the answer had never really been in doubt. "We have to go home," Jason said firmly. "Angel Grove needs us, Zordon needs us, and Rita won't have stopped her attacks just because we disappeared. Our world is vulnerable without its Power Rangers." "We understand," O'Neill said, though his tone suggested he wasn't happy about it. "But for the record, you're welcome back any time, any of you. This Earth could use Rangers of our own." Tommy smiled. "Maybe in another dimension, Colonel. Maybe somewhere out there, this Earth has its own team of Power Rangers defending it." "God, I hope not," O'Neill muttered. "The spandex budget alone would bankrupt us." Despite the tension, that got laughs. Even Hammond smiled. "You've given us a great deal in your time here," the general said seriously. "Tactical knowledge, technological insights, and proof that there are heroes fighting evil across multiple realities. That's a gift we won't forget." Teal'c stood, moving to face the Rangers with formal dignity. In the ways of my people, warriors who have fought beside one another in battle are bonded beyond mere friendship. You are brothers and sisters in arms. Should you ever return to this dimension and have need of a Jaffa warrior, you need only call. I will answer." The Rangers stood as well, returning the respect. "The honor has been ours, Teal'c," Jason said solemnly. Daniel stepped forward, handing Billy a data crystal. "I compiled everything I thought might be useful. Galactic history, Goa'uld tactics, technological specifications. I know you won't face those exact threats in your universe, but the principles might help. Knowledge is power, regardless of dimension." "Thank you, Dr. Jackson." Billy accepted the crystal carefully. "We'll study it, and who knows, maybe some of this will be useful if Rita ever gets more ambitious." Carter approached Kimberly, holding out a small device. "Personal shield generator. Goa'uld technology, miniaturized. It won't stop everything, but it might save your life someday. Consider it a gift from one defender of Earth to another." Kimberly took it with visible emotion. "We won't forget you, any of you." "Don't get sappy on us now, Pink Ranger," O'Neill said, but his voice was rough. "You've got a world to save, we've got a galaxy to save. Let's just focus on that." The meeting adjourned, but no one moved immediately. These were warriors who'd faced death together, who'd learned to trust one another despite impossible circumstances. Farewells among such people were never easy. Finally, Jason extended his hand to O'Neill. The Colonel gripped it firmly. "Give 'em hell, Red Ranger." "You too, Colonel." "And Jack?" Jason's voice dropped so only O'Neill could hear. "Thank you for treating us like equals, not kids. That meant everything." O'Neill nodded once, understanding. Then the moment passed, and the Rangers filed out to prepare for tomorrow's departure. In the corridor, Tommy hung back, catching Teal'c's eye. The Jaffa warrior had been watching the White Ranger with particular interest all week, recognizing something in the young man that others missed. "You carry darkness," Teal'c said quietly, "but you have mastered it rather than letting it master you. This is the mark of a true warrior." Tommy's jaw tightened. "I was Rita's Green Ranger once. Under her spell, I attacked my team, nearly destroyed them. I've spent months proving I'm more than that evil." "And you have succeeded," Teal'c assured him. "I too was a servant of false gods. I too did terrible things in their name, but we chose differently. That choice defines us, not our past." "Thank you," Tommy said simply. "That means more than you know." As midnight approached, the Rangers gathered in their temporary quarters one last time. Tomorrow they would attempt the impossible, travel between dimensions using technology that existed in neither universe until a week ago. "Everyone ready?" Jason asked his team. "Ready to go home," Trini confirmed. "Ready to see Zordon again," Billy added. "Ready to kick Rita's butt for that dimensional spell," Zach grinned. "Ready to sleep in my own bed," Kimberly laughed. "Ready for whatever comes next," Tommy finished. Jason nodded, satisfied. They were tired, battered, and far from home, but they were together, and they'd proven once again that Power Rangers could overcome any challenge, even dimensional exile. Tomorrow they would go home. Tonight, they rested as warriors, having earned the respect of Earth's defenders in another reality.
The gate room was packed at 800 hours. It seemed like every off-duty SGC personnel had found a reason to be present for the Rangers' departure. Warriors respected warriors, and word had spread about what these 6 teenagers had accomplished. The dimensional bridge interface sat next to the DHD, connected by crystalline cables that glowed with soft blue light. Carter and Billy had run final checks 3 times. Everything was as ready as it would ever be. The Rangers stood morphed before the Stargate, their colored armor gleaming under the gate room lights. They'd decided to make the journey in full power. If something went wrong, they'd need every advantage. Hammond descended from the control room, his expression formal but warm. Rangers, on behalf of the United States Air Force and the Stargate program, I want to thank you for your service to this Earth. You came here by accident, but you stayed by choice and fought threats that weren't your responsibility. That speaks to your character. Thank you, General, Jason replied, his voice steady through his helmet. This experience taught us that Earth's defenders exist across multiple realities. That's something we'll carry home with us. The bridge is ready, Carter announced from the DHD. I'm dialing the address now, but instead of a normal wormhole, the interface will modulate the connection to match the dimensional frequency we recorded. In theory, when you step through, you'll emerge in your own universe's version of this location. In theory, O'Neill repeated dryly, my favorite words in any scientific explanation. The energy buildup will be significant, Billy warned. Everyone should maintain a safe distance from the gate. If the dimensional bridge destabilizes, there could be a feedback pulse. Carter began entering the gate address, not to another planet, but to the same coordinates with a dimensional offset. The Stargate responded differently than normal, its chevrons locking with deep, resonant tones that made the entire room vibrate. When the seventh chevron locked, the wormhole that formed was wrong. Beautiful, but wrong. Instead of the usual blue event horizon, this one swirled with multiple colors, hints of red, black, blue, yellow, pink, and white spiraling through the liquid surface. That's the dimensional bridge, Carter confirmed, checking her readings. It's stable. The connection is holding. You have a 10-minute window before the power drain becomes critical. The Rangers turned to face SG-1 one final time. Visit sometime, Colonel, Jason said. Bring the giant robots. I want to see the giant robots. If we can control where dimensional bridges open, Colonel, you'll be our first call, Jason promised. Teal'c bowed formally. May you find your home world unchanged and your enemies unprepared for your return. May you free your people and defeat the false gods, Tommy replied, returning the bow. Daniel stepped forward, clasping hands with Billy. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep trying to understand the universe. That's what makes you more than just a warrior. I will, Dr. Jackson, and thank you for everything you taught me this week. Carter and Kimberly exchanged a brief hug. Save your world, Kim. You save yours, Sam. The Rangers formed up in their standard gate entry formation. Jason first, then Zach and Billy on the flanks, Trini and Kimberly in the middle, Tommy bringing the rear. They'd walked through 1,000 doorways in this configuration, facing whatever lay beyond together. Power Rangers, let's go home. They walked toward the swirling dimensional bridge, but before crossing the threshold, Jason stopped. He turned back to the assembled SGC personnel, to Hammond and SG-1, to the defenders of an Earth not his own. General Hammond, Colonel O'Neill, SG-1, everyone at Stargate Command, you're heroes. You fight a war most of your planet doesn't know exists, face threats that would terrify hardened soldiers, and you do it without glory or recognition. That's true heroism. It's been an honor to fight beside you. Then, without waiting for a response, he stepped through the dimensional bridge. His form dissolved into colored light, red energy that spiraled away into impossible distances. One by one, the other Rangers followed. Black light, blue light, yellow light, pink light, each one pausing at the threshold to offer a final wave or salute before vanishing into the swirling colors. Tommy was last. The White Ranger stood at the event horizon and Saba in hand and looked back at Teal'c. The Jaffa warrior raised his fist to his chest in a warrior's salute. Tommy returned it, then stepped through. White light flared and the dimensional bridge collapsed. The Stargate shut down, its chevrons disengaging with final clicks. The room fell silent. Well, O'Neill said after a long moment. That happened. Indeed it did, Teal'c agreed.
Carter was checking her equipment, saving every scrap of data from the bridge opening. "Sir, we did it. We opened a stable dimensional gateway and successfully sent 6 people through to another universe."
"The implications are classified," Hammond interrupted firmly. "Everything about the Rangers, the dimensional bridge, and the events of the past week is now beyond top secret. No one outside this room discusses it without my direct authorization. Understood?" A chorus of "yes, sir" rang through the gate room. "That said," Hammond continued, his voice softening, "we should remember what those 6 teenagers taught us, that heroism exists across all realities, that age doesn't determine courage, and that sometimes the most unexpected allies become the most valued friends." In the control room, Walter was staring at his console with confusion. "Sir, I'm picking up a transmission. It's coming from—" He paused, checking again. "It's coming from the dimensional bridge coordinates, audio only." "Put it through," Hammond ordered. Static filled the speakers, then cleared. Jason's voice, distant but unmistakable, came through. "Stargate Command, this is Jason Lee Scott. We made it. We're home. Angel Grove is safe, and Zorgon is very interested in hearing about your program. We're going to study everything we learned here, and maybe someday we'll figure out how to visit properly. Until then, thank you for everything. May the Force—" He paused, and there was laughter in his voice. "Wait, wrong franchise. May the power protect you. Rangers out." The transmission ended. O'Neill looked at Daniel. Did he just make a Star Wars joke? "I may have introduced them to our science fiction during downtime," Daniel admitted sheepishly. Despite everything, the danger, the dimensional crisis, the week of chaos, the people in the gate room were smiling. The Rangers had made it home. Against impossible odds, using experimental technology, they'd crossed back to their own universe. "Sir, we should shut down the dimensional bridge interface. The power drain is significant, and we don't want to risk another accidental connection." "Do it," Hammond ordered. "And Captain, document everything. Someday, when the time is right, this research could be invaluable." As SGC returned to its normal operations, as scientists cataloged data and soldiers returned to duty, a sense of something profound lingered in the air. They'd touched another reality, fought beside heroes from a dimension not their own, and proven that some things, courage, honor, the drive to protect innocence, transcended all barriers. In another universe, 6 teenagers materialized in an alley behind the Angel Grove Youth Center. They demorphed immediately, their civilian clothes intact, and looked around in wonder. "We're home. We're really home." The sun was setting, the single Earth sun they'd grown up under. The sounds of their city filled the air, cars, music, familiar voices. Everything was exactly as they had left it, as though no time had passed at all. "Command Center," Jason said urgently, tapping his communicator. "Zordon, Alpha, come in. This is Jason." Zordon's voice filled their minds, vast and concerned. "Rangers, you have returned. We feared you lost to dimensional chaos. Rita's spell scattered your molecules across reality itself." "We found help," Jason interrupted, grinning. "Zordon, we have so much to tell you. We found another Earth, another team of heroes defending their world. They're called Stargate Command, and they fight aliens and false gods and—" "All in good time, Jason." Zordon's voice held amusement and relief. "First, return to the command center. Rita has been attacking constantly in your absence. Alpha and I have held the defenses, but Angel Grove needs its Power Rangers." "We're on it," Tommy confirmed. "Rangers, let's move." They teleported away in streams of colored light, leaving the alley empty except for fading energy signatures that would puzzle anyone with the equipment to detect them. And in the command center, as 6 teenagers appeared on the teleportation platform, Zordon saw immediately that they'd changed, not in their powers or their determination, but in the way they carried themselves. They'd seen another Earth,
fought beside other heroes from a dimension not their own, and returned with knowledge that would serve them well in battles to come. "Welcome home, Rangers," Zordon said warmly, "and well done. You have honored the legacy of those who came before you." "Thank you, Zordon," Jason replied, "but there's something we need to tell you about dimensional travel, ancient shadow entities, and a really impressive ring-shaped portal. It's going to sound crazy." "Rangers," Zordon interrupted gently, "I have existed for 10,000 years across multiple dimensions. Very little sounds crazy to me anymore. Tell me everything." And they did, while somewhere across dimensional boundaries, another Earth's defenders stood ready at their own portal, protecting their world just as fiercely. Two universes, two teams of heroes, one shared understanding that evil must be opposed wherever it appears by whoever can stand against it. The Power Rangers were home, but they would never forget the week they spent defending another Earth, or the friends they made in the impossible depths of Cheyenne Mountain.
3 months passed in both universes. At Stargate Command, the Dimensional Bridge project remained classified, its data locked behind security clearances reserved for the most sensitive information. But its impact rippled through the program in subtle ways. SG teams trained differently now, incorporating high-mobility tactics and synchronized assault patterns learned from teenagers in colored armor. The SF teams had new protocols for supernatural threats. And in the labs, Carter and her team continued exploring theoretical dimensional physics, always wondering if they might someday open another bridge. O'Neill found himself thinking about the Rangers occasionally, usually when missions went sideways and he wished he had 6 impossible teenagers watching his back. Teal'c meditated on the lessons they'd taught about fighting without hatred. Daniel referenced their experience in academic papers that would never be published, theoretical discussions of heroes across realities. Hammond kept a classified file labeled Project Morphin that contained everything they'd learned, just in case. In Angel Grove, the Power Rangers faced Rita's monsters with renewed determination, their experience in another universe teaching them that Earth's defenders existed in many forms across infinite realities. Billy incorporated Goa'uld technology principles into his own inventions. Jason applied SG-1's tactical doctrines to their battles. Teal'c meditated using techniques learned from Jack, and all of them remembered that somewhere across dimensional barriers, another team of heroes fought the same fight under different stars. Zordon listened to their reports with great interest, his ancient wisdom recognizing the value of what they'd experienced. The multiverse was vast, and allies existed in unexpected places. Perhaps someday the barriers between worlds would thin again, and old friends might reunite. Until then, both teams stood ready, the Power Rangers defending their Earth from Rita Repulsa's magic, and Stargate Command protecting their universe from the Goa'uld's tyranny. Different enemies, different technologies, different methods, but the same courage, the same determination, the same absolute refusal to let evil triumph while heroes still drew breath. And if sensors occasionally detected strange energy fluctuations near both the Stargate and the command center, dimensional echoes of a bridge that had opened once and might someday open again, well, some mysteries were worth preserving. The multiverse was infinite after all, and heroes existed in every corner of it. May the Force be with you. More stories await.